Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock.
My name is Danny.
And we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Home Dad Chat. Tonight is going to be a whole lot of laughs. We have brought on a special guest. He is an author of now 6 books. The majority of those are parenting books, but this one that we're going to be talking about tonight that's new is a little bit outside of parenting, but also has some elements to it in a very odd way with AI involved in it. And, 12-year-olds that aren't quite 12-year-olds and things along those lines. But we're going to be talking to James Breakwell. But before we talk to him just for a few seconds, I just want to check in with my buddy Danny, because this is always our favorite time of the week to be able to have a chance to just connect. How you doing up there, man? Are you getting any snow, or are you getting ready for the big winter craziness?
Clear skies, man. Clear skies.
You're
We've
lucky.
had no snow, and it's been on probably a week and a half. Still on the ground everywhere. But yeah, the kids next door, actually, they have a sled. They've taken, these are little kids. They're probably, I would say 6 and maybe 8. And they have a sled and 2 big, snow shovels, and they will cover it and they'll pull it over to the side, and they're making forts.
Nice. There you go.
They have 2 they've got to be 5-foot high snow forts, and they're on the opposite sides of the driveway. And I'm just waiting for that battle. I just want to sit out there. Yeah, go. And just see who gets nailed first. Cause
you just need to make an order for a delivery for UPS or FedEx to come by. Like, get them.
I get to get one of the pizza guys I don't like. Oh wait, I like all the pizza guys.
Don't do it to a pizza guy. You need your pizza.
Too much.
Yeah.
Really.
Well,
yeah,
James,
been good.
Yeah, where James is at though, man, and where I'm at, we're gonna definitely get hit with a winter storm in the next couple of days. So it's gonna be real interesting.
The last time I looked at the radar, there was like a bullseye on Indianapolis. It was like there was one section that was pink. I didn't even know pink was a color on the radar. And it was supposed to be like 16 to 24 inches. Like, holy cow! Like the world hates us. But they've since downgraded that. They're all over the place, and now it sounds like we're going to get maybe ice with then 10 inches of snow on top of it, which is probably worse than 24 inches of snow with no ice. So remind me, what state are you in, Brock?
I'm over here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I'm just right across. I'm pretty much parallel to you. So yeah,
everything that hits us will hit you about a few hours later. So we'll see. We'll see who survives this storm.
I've always known pink and purple to be the worst colors to see when it comes to when it comes to the winter, because that's ice and snow, and those two mixtures together do not make it nice for the road.
Man, well, you've got. Are you a Bengals fan?
I am. I grew up I grew up as a Colts fan, but I am definitely rooting for the Bengals. I've lived here for about 15 years. So, it's one of those things where it's like, definitely am excited about them going to the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah. I guess the kids are getting 2 days off school for that, which is incredible. I wish they would have done that growing up. Now, mind you, I didn't watch football at all growing up. I just would have enjoyed 2 days off school. I would have supported whichever team would get me out of school.
That's definitely throwing all the chips on the table for a Super Bowl win with a parade once they come back, kind of deal. That's what that is all about. I guarantee it. That's the whole shebang for it.
And it's as big. If they lose though, that's just 2 days to nurse that hangover. So either way, Cincinnati's gonna have a wild time.
Right, definitely. Yeah, I mean, last year it was the run on toilet paper. If we lose, it'll be the run on Kleenex. So I'm excited to have you on the show. I was telling Danny earlier on when you had announced that the book was coming out, the Chosen, I got it mixed up on here.
The Chosen 12.
The Chosen 12. Yeah, I had it on here. Oh man, you can see where my night's going. This is
my shortest title. Yeah, this should be the easy one to remember.
Yeah, well,
Well, I'm just going to say the guy with ADD remembered. So
there you go. We're good. We're good.
Brock's just having a moment.
All my other titles are like a paragraph long, and this one's 3 words. Even I can remember. Other ones,
yeah, they really are. Because I started looking at and just recognizing, because I wanted to see what else you'd written and whatever. Oh yeah, I read that book or whatever. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's. And my wife asked me, and she said, well, which one are you going to read next? I'm like, okay, sit down because I tell you the title. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. They're just all really long. And it's very explicit. I mean, it makes sense. It's a good definition of what you're going to get in the book, but at the same time, it's not like this one. You know?
Yep. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, so like I said, you get the 5 different books there, and they're all very interestingly titled, like you said. So, and two, like, just to kind of give a brief little intro, because we just sort of jumped into our conversation for anybody who's listening that doesn't know James. So James Breakwell, that is his pseudonym name on online, and he also goes by Exploding Unicorn on Twitter, where he has 1.1 million followers, and he's got a very active newsletter, and he's just very funny to follow on those different social media handles. Definitely, if you need a chuckle, that's where I go. That's where you should go. It's just, you never know what you're going to get, but it's always stuff that involves a lot of times like his life as a dad. So you with having 4 girls, like you're saying, it's a bit of a Royal Rumble in your house. So, and you also have animals at your house.
Yes.
Is that right?
Too many animals.
I mean, it's like a little bit like Animal Farm, your place. I believe last I talked to you, you had a pig that got away or something.
Yes. we have 2 pigs, actually. One of them did get away, but she only got away like 10 feet. She just went outside and, ate the grass and was out there long enough to have a neighbor call the police on her. We have 2 pigs. They are now in our custody. We also have 2 guinea pigs and a dog. So we have all sizes of pigs.
Man, yeah, you got the proverbial petting zoo going on there then.
Very much so.
I personally, and it may sound weird, but having been on a farm and homestead and things like that, I love pigs. And I always wanted to have pigs. Now, do you have like a specific, are they like pigs that are supposed to be in the house, or
they are in the house right now. They are house pigs. They have a doggy door. They go out so they can use the bathroom in the yard and hang out in the yard, but they are pansies and do not enjoy the cold. So this time of year, they're in the house pretty much around the clock.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I have to say, I wish I could convince my wife to do that, because pigs are so intelligent.
They are, but they use the intelligence for evil, and you have to be aware of that up front.
Maybe my wife picks up on that. That's why she didn't want us to have them, I guess.
She's a smart lady.
So I can't remember if this was part of your book, one of your last books or not, but in the book of how to save your child from ostrich attacks, is there one in there about how to survive a pig attack or anything like that? I couldn't remember.
There's not one on how to survive a pig attack, but there probably should be. They don't really attack. They mostly just steal your food right from under you. They steal the dog's food too. That's my big battle. I can never remember if the dog's bowl is down or not. And every time they come out of their back room, the pigs, they just shoot like a missile into the kitchen looking for that dog bowl. And it's like 2 times out of 3, they get there before I can. It really humbles you to get outsmarted by a pig. It's not a good feeling.
At least you have the gentle pigs, because in Texas, I could hear like anybody who lives in Texas be like, well, I know the pigs down there, they do like to attack people. So yeah. But they're also probably like 4 times the size of your pigs in your house. So that's another reason why. So, but hey, so I want to get into this book, the Chosen 12, man. Honestly, this book, I am not a big sci-fi book guy. Danny, I called him. I was like, are you a sci-fi guy? Because I'm going to have some concerns about like what we're going to talk to him about. And Danny assured me that he was a sci-fi guy. And I was like, thank God. I was like, because I don't know that I'm going to get through this entire book by the time we get James on, I will honestly say I got to like chapter 31 today. And
that's pretty far.
And I will say this, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it, and definitely one of those things where it's like, as I listen to it, I had like all these questions or times where I'm just like, what the heck is going on in this thing? But Danny actually finished the whole thing, so kudos to Danny for
we're all
that.
Proud of Danny.
Yay me. Well, I finished a book, actually, as a parent, and I have 4 kids too, so I kind of, you can relate. Getting a book finished is actually something of an accomplishment. These days. It really is.
I couldn't tell you. I write books, but I couldn't tell you the last time I sat down and read one all the way through, because I just don't have time to do one thing at a time. I go the Brock route. I do audiobooks for everything. I listen to them on triple speed, and I listen to them while I'm doing the laundry or doing whatever else. And that's the only way I get through them. So if you found time to sit down and actually put your eyes in the page, I mean, that's hero stuff right there.
Well,
I couldn't listen to it.
Go to bed well. So
yeah, I don't know about listening to it at the 3 times mode. I think I was at 1.3 on mine or whatever like that, so that I could at least understand it. Because if I had anything higher than that, it just sounded like a chipmunk talking to me.
I actually I edited this book at triple speed too. In the final stages, I would go and I had the Word document, and I have a voice to text thing and a text to voice thing, and I just had at the end I was doing a huge landscaping project in my front yard, building a retaining wall and shoveling entirely too much dirt, and I was like, but I've got to edit this book. And it was kind of the point where you get to your final draft of something and you notice like 1 or 2 things per chapter you want to change, and so I played that book all the way through. In one day, I played it all the way through twice at triple speed while I was shoveling dirt. That was the final edit on that book.
Wow. That's impressive.
Awesome. Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty wild because like I said, that triple speed that does not sound right in my ear.
I guess I'm used to small kids who talk fast, and that's how I listen to everything. Also, though, my app. So the one you're listening to, I assume you're listening to the official audio book, which has like a professional voice actor doing it and all of that. It sounds really cool. This is just straight up a robot voice that reads it back, totally monotone, which is oddly fitting for all the robot parts. It's like, that totally.
I was gonna say, does that work well with the main?
It did. There's a couple characters that worked really well for her. Most of the other ones, not so much. But the advantage of the monotone is because I listen to that same monotone for all my stuff. Is I get really used to it, so I can do a triple speed without losing too much on it. And then that way, if they stumble over, if there's like that one weird word or one typo, then it sounds really out of place, and I could pause it, wipe the dirt off my hands, make a note of what I needed to go back and fix, and then go back to shoveling.
Nice.
So it was a busy day.
Now, I have to ask, because it is such a divergence from what you've done previously, and you did have something in your acknowledgements, to, I think, your publisher or your agent.
Okay.
Your literary agent, I think.
Yes.
And basically it said, thank you for, again, helping me branch out into a new area. How was that? Because I imagine, if the parenting books you've written, the reviews that I've read and the synopsis of them, that's great stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I can see this. He's funny. He's definitely a parent. He definitely has kids. But then the leap to, there's a lot there. Yeah. But the leap to science fiction is kind of, it is a big step away. So how are you feeling when you were doing that? And who was it? Someone else's idea, or did you say, I want to go do this? This is something I've always wanted to do, or where are you at?
It was an idea that had been bouncing around in my head for forever. And I was like, man, I'd love to write that book someday. I mean, when I started out this whole journey, I never set out to be like the parenting guy or the dad blogger or any of that. That's just kind of what happened. I started a blog years ago, and I wrote about literally everything. I started in college before I had any kids. And then when I got to Twitter, by then I had kids. They kind of creep up on you. And that's where I really zeroed in on the dad stuff. But I still always wanted to, write some science fiction. And after I'd written all those books, all those parenting books, those very specific books, it's kind of like, where do you go next? And this was, I thought, it's time. And with the pandemic, I had a little bit more time at home. I was able to finally put it all down on paper. And my agent, Mark Gottlieb at Trident Books, he's always so supportive. He's never told me no for one of my ideas, probably even when he should. Like, there were some ideas he should have shot down, but he's been there for all of them. And I gave him the book, and he shopped it around, and he found a publisher, and we were good to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, your publisher for this is Penguin, correct?
It's so Penguin is the audiobook. It's weird how that works. So that the physical book is Rebellion Books in the UK. So it's a British publisher. Cool. Okay. Which is why if you will look at the physical book on the back, there's a bunch of weird British spellings for words, but you get inside the book and it's all American, because I'm American and my editor was American. And so it's only British on the outside. But yes, then Penguin bought the audio rights and they handled it from there.
That's cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw the Penguin stamp because I listened to it on Audible, so that would make sense. Then
they did a great job with the audio portion too. I was super happy with how that came out.
That's cool. Yeah. So when I started to read this book, I read the sort of the synopsis on I think it was on Amazon or whatever, and I was like, this is going to be very interesting. I think the thing that really caught my my immediate attention, and this is coming from the fact of just like my background in faith, and I used to be a youth minister and I work at a church now. God lives in a coffee pot. I'm like, okay, you got me. Where are we going with this? Where did that come from, man?
That was, you know what, that was one of the lines that spurred the whole book. Sometimes I'll get to something I'm writing and there's like one sentence that's just anchored down, concrete, cannot change, and that was the one. And I was like, I could build a book around this, and I had all sorts of other ideas and places where I could go, but I think that weird situation kind of summed up the whole tone, the whole theme, the whole vibe of the book. That you've got all of these weird rival warring AIs bouncing around, and the kids don't really know where they're from or what they're about, but they seem to always know something, and they seem to be untrustworthy except for this one. And I thought, if we just set up this encounter with this kid, this confused kid, and this seemingly all-knowing entity that of all places is in a coffee machine, that's really going to tell you what the book is about. I was very happy to start the book with that scene, and I was very happy that nobody asked me to change it. Like nowhere along the line was somebody like, you can't put God in a coffee maker. It's like, okay, that's good. Everybody's very open-minded about this.
It was great. It was great.
And I know that the book just came out, but honestly, when I was reading that part, I was like, this needs to be a movie. I need to know, I need to see that scene firsthand to know, like, like I'm trying to like picture it in my head. And I'm like somebody, a director needs to like make this actually real so I can understand and see what that's like. Is that along with the fact of being scared about doors closing on you and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Now, are you a big sci-fi fan? Or were you previously? Okay.
Yeah. And so growing up, I was a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke. I read, you remember the Star Wars Expanded Universe books? They made them all non-canon now, but I read a few dozen of those growing up. But anything sci-fi I was a big fan of. I like sci-fi and I like history. Those are kind of my two genres. Not historical fiction though. It's got to be real history. Very oddly picky about that. But yeah, so I always wanted to kind of throw my hat in the ring for that. But there's just so much good stuff out there already. It's kind of intimidating. Like, can I really step in here? Can I really, take a chance with that? And then you just kind of start putting one word in front of the other. I had to be careful though. So with my other books, the nonfiction, they're kind of basically standalone essays. Each chapter you can go and I could, let's write about how you can kill zombies with an umbrella stroller. Let's write about how you can kill zombies with a minivan. Let's write about how to go grocery shopping in the zombie apocalypse. Each one's kind of a standalone kingdom. And at the end, it's like, okay, what order do I want to put these in? With a narrative book, you can't do that. It's like, I need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I can't just throw this together at the last chapter. So this is the first time I really had to outline and think out, where I wanted to go with this. I had a file of ideas that was about 10,000 words where I just kind of put down anything I could think of. And it was a big abomination. And I got to the end of that. I was like, all right, which of these ideas work with the other ideas? And I took those and condensed them down to a 1-paragraph summary and kind of built out from there. And then once I did that, I did voice to text and I just talked it out. And from that first draft, just talking out, here's what I think should happen. The book actually changed very little from there. It pretty much came out stream of consciousness, start to finish. That God in the coffee maker was just a good starting point for me, I guess.
Yeah, it was great. And I have to say, because anything that you write, I think, especially in science fiction, you're going to get compared. Yes. That is, this is like this is like that, especially if you're trying to do a description of the book. Like if I try to tell someone, they said, what's this book about? It would take me a second to do it without comparing it to something. So I hope that that's something you understand and that you hopefully take as a compliment when I say I was very much reminded of a Douglas Adams kind of feel, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and those kind of books. And it wasn't that, far left field. I don't mean it like that, but it didn't stick with the normal, well, this is what's going to happen with the AI. This is what it's going to do. Oh, no, it didn't do that. Why didn't it do? Oh, well, it makes sense why it didn't do that. Or it says something odd, or one of the characters says something that's just completely, out of place suddenly, but it makes sense. And when you figure out who they are and what's going on, but I really enjoyed it because of that. And I do mean it as a compliment. So
I absolutely take it as a compliment. I don't know how anybody could be insulted by being compared to Douglas Adams. He's kind of the gold standard for, really? For comedy and sci-fi. I mean, he's probably the one comedy and sci-fi guy you ever think of with that. So definitely thank you for that. In my mind, if I were to compare it to two books, it kind of comes out to me, it's like a mashup of Ender's Game and Lord of the Flies. Like when everything kind of hits the fan and everybody's out for themselves. So that's the Lord of the Flies part. And then the Ender's Game, there's kind of this competition for who's going to go in there. But yeah, my editor and the publisher, they compared it to Philip K. Dick books. And I'll be honest, I've never read a Philip K. Dick book. I had to look him up on Wikipedia to see who he was. But you're right. But that's kind of how we, understand all books. Well, what's this book like? Well, it's, Harry Potter meets whatever. So yeah, that's I think that comes with the territory to get compared. So I'm just glad they're not comparing it to here's two books I hate. It's pretty much like that. So.
Yeah, I mean,
no, it was well done.
For me, I'm not like I said, I'm not a sci-fi book reader, but I like sci-fi movies, and so I enjoy that. It's like as I was listening to it and kind of picturing it in my head, because that's how I'd usually do a lot of that. It's just like a movie running in my head. Like I had Lord of the Flies was definitely in there. Lost in Space, the Netflix series that came out. Like I had a little bit of that in there. Travelers, I don't know if you saw that on Netflix as well.
I have not seen that one.
Travelers is where like you have a group of people from the future who are sending their people into the past to try to change the future so that the apocalypse doesn't happen.
Oh.
And so you could have like an older person like jump into like a younger person's body, and then they've got to figure out how to like function in that setup. So like there's one character I know, he's like probably in his like 60s or something like that, and he jumps into like a 19-year-old kid's body or something, and he knows all this knowledge about different things, and he's got to be careful how he shares it. And so you see that with some of these characters that you have in the book, and the things that either they know or even like the AI knows that they either won't share or it's classified or whatever it is. And so that was interesting to definitely like follow along with. And then for me, like this is the part, and I don't hope you don't take offense to this, but for me, the thing that was really wild was like there were parts where I was like, this is like a Mad Lib. Like I felt like there were just parts where like I'm reading along here and there were blanks, and like you just turn to your kids and they're like, I need a strange animal. Okay. How about fighting kangaroos? Okay. Like, what like that kind of stuff, just there's all kinds of interesting things where I'm curious, like, is that just a normal thought pattern for you to just kind of be outside of the box on like Wolfsharks and like these fighting kangaroos and things? Where did that come from?
So the most Mad Libby parts are probably when the kids are in the simulation. That was really why I enjoyed drawing around it. So I think there's this idea that if you look at Ender's Game and the kids are so serious training for military stuff and getting prepared, but it's like if you give children the most powerful computer in the universe that can do anything, you think they're going to use that responsibly, and you give them, and then they're supposed to use this to build a civilization. Like, of course it goes wrong. Of course they have, war elephants with diarrhea and exploding armadillos and all this. Like, it's just everything goes wrong. It's just chaos on an accelerated scale. And so that was those were definitely the funnest parts of the book to write. As far as kangaroos are just kind of wild to me in general. If you look at now, I don't know if I've ever actually seen a kangaroo face to face. I've seen.
You need to come to the Cincinnati Zoo then.
Is it? You know what? Maybe I did go to the Cincinnati Zoo. I probably saw one there then.
I was going to say they have the exhibit there that's open. You can see them. You can walk right through their exhibit. They'll almost walk right up to you and punch you if you're not careful.
We made a special trip to the Cincinnati Zoo this summer, and we made such a big deal out of it because the kids wanted to see Fiona the hippo.
Oh yeah.
And so we went over there, and the kids were just awful, and we're never going to a zoo again. But anyway, kangaroos are walks. You look at them, and they look like humanoids. I mean, you look at it and you're like, if this thing was just a little bit smarter, if this thing had thumbs, like what could it do? And especially there's those viral videos of that one kangaroo in Australia that's just like super buff.
Yes.
And I was thinking, I was like, okay, these humans land on this planet the first time, and there's some spoilers here for the book, and they're looking for what's something that can live in just a really barren environment and cover a bunch of ground and probably fight when it gets there. Well, what if you take a kangaroo who can go 40 miles an hour and can hop so it can get across terrain. It's already used to living in, arid Australia out in the middle of nowhere where everything's trying to kill you. And you make it just a little bit bigger, and a little bit smarter, and a little bit fiercer, and a little bit better able to, communicate with other ones. Like, actually, you probably wouldn't have to change it that far. And then, of course, once you make them better at killing, they're going to turn on you. And so then that just unfolded naturally, of course.
Yeah, I mean, along with that, like like I said, I'm only 31 chapters in so far, but for me, I'm like, okay, are these kangaroos real, or are they just in the simulation? Like, what's going on? And so that's the part where Danny can't tell me. I can't get.
Yeah, I'm trying so hard because there's so many things I want to talk about, but it's just going to spoil it.
Right.
And not for you, but for the listeners. And
that just teases it. Yeah, that just teases it for everybody who's listening to go and get the book and either read it or listen to it, and definitely be entertained by it for sure. I told a buddy of mine about it who loves to listen to audiobooks all the time when he drives around. And I was like, man, you would like this book. Like, honestly, like it'll be very enticing. Now, here's his thing though. He doesn't like to get into books that are going to be series yet until the series is over.
Oh, well, so, here's what I will say to your friend. So I am not a big enough author, and I don't have enough trust from publishers. They're like, go ahead and write 10 books and just finish whatever. And then you can end each one with a cliffhanger and people will buy it. So I live book to book. So when I wrote this book, I knew there was a very good chance. This is my one and only chance with these characters. This is the only opportunity to tell their story. So it ends in a place where if I never, ever get to write another book about these characters, it could absolutely stay there. And I would be fine, and I would be satisfied with that ending. With that being said, I am pitching another book in the series right now. It has not been approved yet. I'm actually writing the sample chapters right now. And one of the things the kids are running into is, well, here's what the simulation told us, and here's reality, and here's where they diverge. So I'm finally getting to get into that question a little bit more. But if I'm lucky enough, if they like the chapters well enough to pick up book number 2, they're not going to approve like a 3-book arc. Like, there'll be book number 2, and I will write a definite ending to book number 2 in case it's the last time ever. So there's something to be said for being the scrappy author who's always on the edge of getting cut off. So I will always give you a satisfying ending if that's as far as I can make it.
I love it. That's a good answer to that for sure.
I wanted to ask you if there was going to be another, and I didn't want to say anything because I definitely don't want to tell anybody how the book ends. I want them to read it for themselves, but at the same time, I'm like, could we have another one? And I'm glad you said that.
I would love to write another one. I have a distinct idea of where the story would go. So actually, when I came about with the idea for this in my head, I didn't even start where the characters are now. So they're on this decaying moon base as children, or allegedly as children. In my head, when this story started, they were far beyond this. They were on the planet below, like in the distant future. And they the civilization they've been talking about building, it was there. And it had all these weird hierarchies, and there were these politics going on. And I thought, well, how did they get there? And rather than starting there and hoping someday somebody approved a prequel, I was like, you know what? We're going to start this story at the beginning, at the absolute beginning, and we'll see how far we made it. And we made it to book 1, which honestly I was ecstatic about. You never know. So we got one book out there, and now we'll see if we can get book 2. And if I ever make it to book 3 where it actually started in my imagination, I will probably die from happiness. And then there really won't be a book 4. That'll be it. Just publish book 3 at my funeral.
So the other thing that I'm really curious about with this book is it's got some very interesting names for some of the characters, especially the kids. So you have 22 living type deal, that kind of thing. I'm curious, like, they all are part of the Greek alphabet. I thought it was really funny when I got to the part where it actually mentioned Omicron, because I was like, oh, here we are.
That was unfortunate.
I was like that didn't feed well. But where did you come up with deciding to go with the Greek alphabet?
So names are one of the hardest thing to come up with for characters, especially for me, and especially in sci-fi. It's like, well, do you go with normal names? Do you go with weird made up names or whatever? And as I got into it, I finally realized, well, okay, these kids are being raised by robots that don't particularly care about them. They care more about what these kids can do, what they represent, the labor they can put out. So how is a robot going to name you? They're not going to look for biblical names or family names. And so they went with Greek letters all the way down. It also helped me avoid, some potential pitfalls of this. So I didn't really give physical descriptions of any of the characters beyond some are bigger than, or, a little bit smaller or slighter or anything like that. So I didn't want to get into a Noah's Ark, situation of like, well, we've got so many American embryos and so many from this country and so many from that country, or they have this ethnicity or that ethnicity. And then if you kill off that person, like, oh, well, that DNA is gone from the gene pool forever. But if I just give each character a Greek letter, there are no connotations whatsoever. That character can be whoever you want. You can imagine them to be from wherever you think. They look however you think. And that way I can kill anybody I want. I don't have to feel guilty about it. So that was ultimately how I ended up with it.
Yeah. But nobody dies.
Nobody. No, they're all perfectly safe. Very
everybody's
happy
fine.
Yeah.
Everybody makes it to the planet. It's a great ending.
I will say though, you have some very interesting characters though too, just in some of the different aspects of how they function. So like, for instance, one of the characters, I'm blanking on names. I should have wrote them all down as I was going through it, but you have a character who has a infinite supply of nail polish.
Yes.
And I believe is male, if I'm not, is it right?
Yes, I think it's Tao. Yes.
Yeah. And I just found that to be a very intriguing character. Like he, going along with like, no one knows where his stash is. He's always got a different color every day. And I just love that because I feel like for kids who are into wearing nail polish, especially boys, like it's somebody that they can immediately like latch onto and like just really kind of identify with. So I thought that was really neat. You have like these very weird like young relationships that are going on in there. And that was intriguing to me because I did not expect that. I did not expect that. Like even the one who's like mildly like, I would say sexist or chauvinist, but like he's like, hey babe, like thing or whatever from time to time. And I'm like, this is totally what like a young kid might call, a girl type of thing. But it was a hilarious, like just little piece that was put in there. But I found those things to be very entertaining to just, they would just come out in different parts throughout the book. And to me, like, yes, you don't give an actual like physical description, but to me, like it actually sort of like helped to just sort of, I guess, build my own idea of what they look like in real life.
And that was, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying the descriptions were well done enough to where they didn't necessarily, their names and their, identifying marks or whatever like that, or what race they are, but they were definitely each individual characters. And I think that was well done too, because you could differentiate very easily and kind of figure out, what's this person going to do in this situation? And we'll look for nail polish, or whatever. And it was very cool. So.
And I think, we've all had enough life experience. We know somebody like that. We all know the timid artsy person, or the reclusive loner who's, really into shop class, or, the guy who's into nail polish. Like, I think we can all picture that person in our head. And so if you just describe the behavior enough, people can come up with a mental image. It's what's really wild about writing. I know there's the meme online that says, books are really just you stare at a dead tree and you hallucinate. It's really what it comes down to. The imagination is an incredible thing.
I just was thinking about this while you're talking about that. The other thing that I could put this into is that this has a very Breakfast Club-esque feel to it in a way as well, with them like, sneaking around different corridors and just like the mean old AI, like that kind of thing. I don't know. There's just some, you've got the janitor with this, the sweeper. I mean, they're all there.
Yeah. Spencer was my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's very much, it's literally a case of high school never ends. The AI edubot, she takes them all the way through college, and they're not aging, and the head robot's not done yet with this battle. And it's like, all right, well, the kids are done with college. What do we do? Guess we send them through college again, and they just end up in this loop of education. And that's kind of the I for me, like their whole kind of stasis that they're stuck in, that it felt a lot like just how school in general felt for me. I went to Catholic school with the same small group of kids all the way up through. And we were together. I was with this bunch. I moved when I was in third grade. So from third grade through my senior year in high school, there were 40 kids who I was in there with the whole time. And there were 20 extras who came in high school. So I should have been closer to these people than any other human beings on earth. And we all graduated from high school. And it turned out we didn't really know each other that well. We didn't really like each other that well. And we just kind of scattered to the ends of the earth. And you look at how these kids are towards each other. Like on the one hand, they've been around each other for decades. On the other hand, they're kind of indifferent to each other. And I feel like that's kind of a realistic take on what happens when you're in that close of proximity to somebody for that long.
Mm-hmm.
Does make sense.
Yeah. So with them all being in there and everything else going on, I tell you, like I said, you get to the point where, the relationship part of me, like the thing that threw me for a loop was they started like discussing like family stuff. And so I'm kind of curious, like, how does that play into just like, was there stuff that it was involved as far as like, were your kids involved in any portion of it, or like not so much like in it, like they were like telling you anything, but I mean like their actions, their thing, like maybe conversations that you had with them. Cause like there were some times where I felt like it would be like a conversation that a parent would have with a kid, maybe about growing up, type of deal. Did any of that play a factor in the writing of the story?
I've got an 11-year-old, so she's right on the cusp of all of those conversations. And those are the things she's going through in health class right now. At the same time, the robots stopped the kids from aging at roughly 12, specifically because they didn't want to deal with puberty. Like, we just can't put up with this. We can't have these kids in a confined space going through all this.
Right now, some parent that's listening to this is like, can that be possible? Yeah. Like Danny's like, I think I missed the boat on one of those, but can we get the rest stopped?
Yeah. So they stopped them right there, because even these robots, just from a practical standpoint, they're not comfortable with it either. And they think it's going to make the kids harder to control, and it's going to bring up a whole raft of other issues. So in a way, they keep the children small and innocent. So they're right before the stage where they have to deal with any of this stuff. And it's very artificial. And the kids kind of know what's out there, but at the same time, they don't have to deal with it yet. And in fact, like the simulation has kind of been whitewashed. So the whole point of the simulation is to simulate how you go from 12 people or 24 people on this lander to millions of people on this planet. Well, how does that happen? Somebody has to have babies, but that whole sequence in the simulation is kind of blocked out. There's just 2 people, and then there's 3 people, and they just gloss over that entire thing. So there's just this weird kind of puritanical level of censorship there that kind of does keep them in childhood a little bit. And yeah, it does sound very convenient. If I could dodge that conversation forever, I would. But in real life, we didn't dodge it. I just passed it off on my wife. So that's how that played out.
You do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Play to your strengths.
I don't see that being the case with my family for sure. Like just being a stay-at-home dad. I feel like in a lot of stay-at-home dads, like we're gonna get ourselves put in a place where mom's gonna be away when it all hits, and it's like mom's not gonna be around. So dad's got to be prepared to be able to take on that mantle. Yeah. So. But the nice part about that too, and just sort of like sidebarring, is the fact that Matt Strain from our board has been running a webinar series for about the entire length of this pandemic, honestly. And he actually had an episode where he talked with someone about like just everything with girls growing up and all the different cycles and things like that. And so just gave insight into that. So hopefully I know, like, after I listened to it, I felt a little bit more confident in some areas and scared to death in others, but like it's not stuff that we actually go through. So you're like, oh my gosh,
this is very true.
But still, to be able to at least have the confidence to step up and be that dad, that parent for my daughter, or my son's friends who might be over type of deal is I would rather be in that position than completely blind to it.
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, like I said, this book has so many different sides to it. It is definitely, for lack of a better nerd term, a D&D dice with 20 sided dice type deal, where there's lots of things coming at you from different ways. And I really did, or have so far, enjoyed it, and I'm gonna continue reading it, and listening to it, because yeah, I mean, I want to see how it's got. I got to see how it ends.
You made it through chapter 31. Watch chapter 32 be the one you hate. You're like, why did I endorse this book? I should have cut it off.
I know. I
you
really
definitely want to see.
Yeah.
You definitely want to see how it ends. I mean, it really. I think it ended well. It ended in a good spot. And part of the reading this, going through the story, like, okay, so what is going to happen when we do this thing? And I don't want to spoil anything, but really, this thing's coming. We all know this is coming. How are you going to do that? So yeah, I think you should, Brock. You really should finish it, because I think you'll like it, and then you'll also understand why I want a book too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to end up having to get the hard copy of it, just for the fact that my son loves to read. I think he would enjoy it. He'll turn 9 next week, and I think that it's a book that he would get into, honestly. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I've got the majority of your collection already. So it's like, I got to continue on my library. You know?
I appreciate that. And that's one of the questions that comes up the most, because you look at the cover of the book and it's got a kid with a sword on it. Mm-hmm. It's like, so this is a kid's book, right? And it's like, not really. It's actually adult fiction. It's got kids in it, sort of. And then people ask me that, it's like, well, can I give this to my kid? And I tell them, well, I gave it to my 11-year-old. She didn't read it. She put it on her bookshelf. I'm pretty sure she's going to read it at some point. I think older kids can read it, but it's definitely more for adults. But I know when I was 11, I was reading adult fictions. I'm sure you guys were too. It just, it's kind of a broad genre, but yeah, I think the things the kids are going through, adults, oddly enough, sympathize with those much more. Cause I mean, ultimately these children are adults at heart.
Yeah. Well, and I don't see him picking it up immediately. Like, that's the thing. Like, I want it in my collection for later on when he's older to be able to read it. Because right now he's really big into the Wings of Fire series. So I don't see him getting off of that trail anytime soon. But later on down the line, definitely when he's into that, maybe into like his teenage years, be like, hey, like, check this book out. Like, because I think that honestly, like, in a lot of ways, it is kind of a cool, like, teenagers type of a book to read, for sure, especially because some mid-age teenagers think they're adults already. So why not let them look into, like, what does this look like in different scenarios? Because that's what's in their head the entire time, is scenarios on how to do things.
And the coolest thing about being an author is you can write the kind of book that you want to read. And this is the kind of book I want to read. It's just, I like books from different perspectives. I like books where people have to make hard calls. And I like books where there's not necessarily a right side and a wrong side. Sometimes everybody has an argument for it. So this is the book I would have wanted to read when I was 15, I think. So I will leave you with that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Here. And I have to say too, there were some really good moments in it. I again, trying not to spoil too many things, but Lifting Bot 117.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
his death. I mean, I'm just going to tell people. So, because this is something that, it is there are digitals in this book that die, and this is one of them. But I have to tell you, the fact that he died happy, basically as happy as he could be, because he had met his purpose. And he's a lifting bot and he doesn't get to lift. And I'm like, oh God, that's gotta be awful. It's been 50 years or whatever, and I can't lift it. I've never but now things start falling on me, so I can lift him, and I can lift him, and then he ends up, getting covered with debris because he can't lift it fast enough, and then he dies. And I'm just like, oh, that's perfect, man. That's just a beautiful, beautiful little, sorry you died, but it was a well-written moment. I really love that.
And that was kind of a, he's a simple robot. It seems like he doesn't have feelings, but it's like the same time he has a purpose, and he's there to fulfill that purpose. And it's like, who can't relate to that? I wish I had that much of a distinct purpose in my life, to go for that. And that's the great thing about a multi-perspective book too, that, I was jumping around from human to human to human. It's like, I don't have to stick with humans. I can write about a bad guy, and is he even really that bad of a guy? What if he only wants to lift things? So that was really enjoyable. I'm glad that chapter stuck with you.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, hey, James, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking with us about your new book. For those that are interested in it, I'll have links in the show notes for where you can find it. It is definitely well worth the read or the listen, and is very entertaining. And I hope that you get book 2 and that takes off.
Yeah.
And also too, like, all the other books that James have written are very entertaining. I mean, he's got books on, how to deal with surviving a zombie apocalypse, being a parent, and books on how to save your kids from like all kinds of different things like ostrich attacks and accidental time travel. And, I mean, it's out there. And then also too, like, I love the fact that you also tackle some toxic masculinity, modern masculinity type things as well, and how to be a man. So you definitely have quite the swath of books out there for folks to listen to and read. So hopefully they grab those up, because one, either they're good to read, or two, they make great gifts for those who are just, parents looking for something to be very entertaining in that time where you're just like, I need a break from my kids. So I really appreciate the fact that you've written them. And I really appreciate the fact that, we've gotten to continue on this friendship that, it's a very brief friendship, and the fact that we typically only get to talk over podcast, but the fact that I got to meet you at Dad too, and we've continued, interacting and being able to help just promote your books and stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Well, we all know the real reason I write these books is just so I have an excuse to talk to you once a year. So that's what keeps me going.
Love it. That's great, man. Well, hopefully this is something that the listeners definitely check out. And, we look forward to seeing what comes up next. So thanks so much. You have a great rest of your year, and blessings for the next book, man.
You as well. And go Bengals.
Hoo day. See you, Danny.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.